going on? Cover One crew. Chris Chow's back again for Fantasy Football Cover One style. And what a better day than Victory Tuesday, baby. The Buffalo Bills, we are celebrating. They absolutely dismantled those Tennessee Titans. You got to love what we saw on the field. Yes, some injuries did transpire. Don't like that in week number 2, but we'll get healthy, and this team looks good. You can't hate it whatsoever. Go Bills. No kidding. But what are we doing today? I'm going to thank y'all for hitting that like goal last week. You guys smashed it out of the park. Let's do it again. Smash that like button for me because it helps grow this channel that much more. It helps us do better things. So also leave comments for you. If you want to leave comments on players you're discussing, I'll definitely get back to you. But what are we doing today? We're talking waiver wire week 3 additions to add to your team. And, you know, the positive, again, is going about saying injuries for the waiver wire. We haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of it right now, which is great news. But the teams that are struggling, I do have some talent for you to consider. So let's dive in and waste no time. Waiver Wire Additions, week number 3. So as we enter week 3, like I'm saying, there hasn't been a ton of injuries to key players and key talent. Knock on wood, because we don't want that to happen. But there are players on the waiver wire list that we need to target simply because they're outperforming where their ADP was. I told y'all about some of these guys last week, so hopefully you listen and put them on your roster. But let's go, man. First one we got is running backs once again. And this week it's a little bit thin on the running back waiver wire additions, but there are some players we got to consider at least to put on our bench as a stash, as an option. And we'll start off with Raheem Mostert for those Miami Dolphins. The Fish, they are starting to look good, man. They look fast. And I mean, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are just absolute killers on the field. This will only, promote more running ability in the run game for these Miami Dolphins. Raheem Mostert did get some, he got some carries sprinkled in. Chase Edmonds got some as well. So you got to think as this team starts to understand and figure themselves out, they will start to utilize the ground game just a little bit more. They are like a track team out there, no kidding, and it is Raheem Mostert who will add to that track speed. Only 47% ownership rate right now. His point totals aren't quite there yet, so he is right now a good viable bench stash for your team right now. If something happens to Edmonds, he will automatically catapult to the top of the list of being the running back 1 in Miami, highly likely. Next one I got is basically, I want to say a good addition, not a must addition, but it's Eno Benjamin from the Arizona Cardinals. And everyone's going to say it's Darrell Williams that needs to be added, and I don't disagree, but let me put it to you this way. So the rumor has it that James Conner is dealing with an injury. He hurt himself in that contest we did see, and Darrell Williams did pick up where he left off, got himself 13.2 points so far this season. But where the caveat is everyone's saying, or all the media reports from Arizona are suggesting that James Conner is day-to-day. He will be fine. So that puts Darrell Williams back down a little bit, where it keeps Eno Benjamin at that even kill where we have seen him this year so far. More of the change of pace running back, more of the wide receiver pass-catching back option in this offense. So for me, we got to see where James Conner is, but I'm going off of what we know today, and what we know today is that he is likely day-to-day, and Eno Benjamin will continue to keep his change of pace role in this offense. So for me, it's time to put Eno on your bench. If you have some running back troubles and some worries, and you're looking to hedge your bets a little bit, you got some room. Eno's not a bad add at this point, man. Like I said, Darrell Williams, we just covered that. So, I mean, he is another viable option, but it is what it is. Mark Ingram, I mean, he can fill in for Alvin Kamara. Did not look great in that offense versus the Buccaneers, so I'm kind of fading him, but putting him here just in case you are an Alvin Kamara owner and you need some shares. 25%, so he's likely still on the waiver wire for you. Can help you out, hopefully, if the cause is there. Hopefully, Alvin does come back this week. Khalil Herbert needs to be owned at this point in most leagues that you're in. He is going to be the one of the better handcuffs. He is a valuable running back that's going to be in the Chicago Bears offense, I do believe, moving forward. They could do a easily 60-40 split, and Herbert can easily get you 10 points per week, barring any touchdown upside. Yes, the Bears offense is still struggling. Yes, they're not passing the ball enough to open up the lanes for this run game, but Khalil Herbert is one of these guys, one of my favorites that you got to put on your roster if you want some running back depth. Do not, drop anybody of higher value. It's all about finding the best value at this point, but but Khalil Herbert is definitely one you got to watch. Tyler Algier, I'm going to put out a little bit of a flyer on him right now because he did see a lot more carries this past week, and then he's going to be a very good matchup play type of player in this offense, I do believe, as the weeks do start to prolong. Yes, Cordero Patterson is still the number one guy, but you see on the goal line, Algier is that guy that they can definitely trust as the season does go on and wear on. He is a put-together human being, and only at, 13% ownership rate. It's a low risk, man, so if he doesn't pan out in a couple weeks, you can easily drop him without any sacrifice whatsoever on your roster. J.D. McKissic has found his way back into the waiver wire edition. The Washington Commanders, their offense was struggling this past week. Carson Wentz still was able to manufacture ways to keep himself relevant, and using J.D. McKissic was part of the, elixir to do that. So J.D. McKissic, he's going to be high risk, high reward basically every week. But again, we need viable PPR option running backs to put on our bench if we do get stuck in a pinch and we got to put somebody in our flex. J.D. McKissic is that guy that we could likely trust because he's done it for us a lot. So again, matchup play for McKissic is definitely there. The caveat right now I got to put on is Isaiah Spiller. Everyone's going to say, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't even earned a roster spot, and I completely understand. Listen and hear me out on this one. This running game in LA definitely needs some kind of, injection of some electric ability. And I do believe it's coming. We may be a couple weeks early on Isaiah Spiller. I might be a couple weeks early on Isaiah Spiller telling you to pick him up. But this is a low-rent bench stash right now. I want to feel like the couple weeks are going to come, especially if Kelly is not running the ball very well. Eckler's struggling right now, and the pass game is basically carrying this offense. They want to implement more running style in this offense, and that's why you drafted yourself an Isaiah Spiller. And I think once he starts to pick up, he's going to be very difficult to get. Right now, you're getting him on pennies on the dollar, basically for free. You wouldn't even have to put any fab money in on this player right now. So Spiller, he is definitely one to keep on your watch list, but if you have room in deeper leagues, definitely stash him on your bench at this point as a wait and see. It's going to take about 2 to 3 weeks, but why not get ahead of the curve and get in early on an Isaiah Spiller before others start to, think and think the same way we are at this point. Brandon Bolden rounds out the running backs only because of the PPR upside. He missed last week's game due to that injury, but you saw how the Raiders offense did struggle without a pass-catching back. He is definitely going to be the James White of this Raiders offense. Las Vegas Raiders, he's going to definitely be the PPR guy, the James White guy in this offense for the Raiders. You definitely got to own. So wide receivers, the meat and potatoes of the waiver wire this week, and I told y'all, hope you listened to me, I told y'all to pick up Garrett Wilson and Jahan Dotson. Why are they still at 50% ownership, basically, man? So that means in 50% of leagues on the consensus, they are available in your leagues. Go and get them. Now you're going to have to pay heavy dollars to get both of them, man. Garrett Wilson has his breakout party this past week, scores 2 touchdowns with Joe Flacco throwing him the ball, hoping that when Zach Wilson does come back, the chemistry will build and be that much better. But Garrett Wilson, man, I've been telling y'all, he's an alpha wide receiver. You got to listen. Get those alphas on your team. He is absolutely stellar, man. 33.2 points so far this season, under 50% ownership rate. He will likely be there in most leagues, so definitely scoop him up. When it comes to fab rates on this man, it's going to be difficult. I want to say at minimum 15% of your fab money needs to go to Garrett Wilson, because if you want to put in higher, I can totally see that. But at minimum, 15% of your fab dollars got to go to Garrett Wilson, because he is that alpha wide receiver, man. A lot of these guys talking about JJ vibes coming from Garrett Wilson. It's no lie. When I scouted his film, he is a true alpha number 1 wide receiver. Red zone appeal. Look at the shake he's able to do. He separates. He gets in the end zone scoring touchdowns. Just unbelievable wide receiver. Hands are phenomenal. Jahan Dotson's your other guy. He is not an alpha per se, but he is an alpha, on the minimum side. He can do it all, man, especially with Terry McLaurin and now Curtis Samuel pulling coverage from the side. Nobody can stick with this man one-on-one, and he's proving it now 2 weeks in a row as a rookie. Finding the end zone, he is a stellar talent. Or maybe he didn't find the end zone. I got to double-check that this past. No, I'm pretty sure he did. But nevertheless, Jahan Dotson needs to be owned on your team because he is a dog. He is a baller. Like I said last week, route tree is unbelievable. Quick first steps off the line. His catch radius is ridiculous for a man his size, and he's got some hops. So why do you not want a guy on this team as well? Again, for fab money, you're likely probably going to have to spend about 15% of your fab dollars just to get Jahan Dotson. I would prefer to go for a Garrett Wilson above Jahan Dotson as we sit today, but 2 weeks in a row for Jahan, you can't hate that whatsoever. A very nice consolation prize if you miss out on a Garrett Wilson. Devin Duvernay still surprisingly sits on most waivers after his blow-up game. People were still kind of cautious and nervous, playing the cautiously optimistic approach. 41% ownership stake. I mean, yes, he didn't have as good a game as he did the week before, but this Ravens offense is moving with the pass game with Lamar Jackson now. He is starting to spread the ball around. Yes, it was Bateman's day this past week against the Dolphins. Duvernay is going to be a fixture in this offense. Yes, Duvernay did get you that punt return touchdown, so hopefully you guys count that as well. But, I mean, he is a very good wide receiver, and it will likely be relied upon in this offense to give you that secondary appeal. Devin Duvernay is a guy that needs to at least be on your roster right now, 10%-ish, not lower, maybe 5 to 10% in that realm. 8% of your fab dollars could go to Duvernay at this point. There might be some guys cooling off on him because he had a lesser statistical game this past week, so maybe you'll get away with 5% of your dollars on a Devin Duvernay. Russell Gage does enter the conversation this week because of the suspension to Mike Evans. He gets suspended for chucking Marshawn Lattimore across the field after Lattimore went after Tom Brady. So Gage is an interesting guy. Julio Jones, we're going to watch the injury report. There he goes again. You know, I had all this faith in Julio. He finds himself back in the medical room with a knee injury. So as long as Russell Gage is healthy, he will likely be heavy on the target share this week if you're in desperate need of a wide receiver to make plays coming from Tom Brady. Hopefully they fix their offense just a little bit. They look a little anemic right now, and I don't really like it, but Gage is definitely one guy you got to put on your roster. Greg Dortch, man, from these Arizona Cardinals, he's making a name for himself that he is, viable and should be on your roster, and he could be, a flex matchup play at this point, man. 4% ownership rate, 23 points, man. Why is this guy not on more rosters? You got to go get him. The Cardinals did show some heart, showed a lot of fight in this past contest to win it, so you got to think those building blocks do help promote better offensive production, better team dynamics, and Dortch is one of these guys. He's turned my eye. I like what he's doing. He's consistent. He's reliable, and Kyler Murray has found some trust in him, so he is one guy I think that also needs to be on people's benches right now as a wait and see next couple weeks. He does give you some matchup flex appeal already as we sit today, 10 points-ish per game, so, I mean, you can't hate that whatsoever. Josh Palmer, one of my guys, I mean, his value does increase as long as Keenan Allen doesn't return. He'll likely fade a little bit more when Keenan does come back on the field, but those hamstrings are tricky. Maybe a couple weeks, maybe re-aggravate the injuries for Keenan for these hamstrings. They always seem to creep up for NFL players, and they can't stand them, but Palmer is definitely one of these guys. He didn't have a great day this past week on Thursday Night Football, found the end zone to save his fantasy day, but he is one guy that you definitely should keep in mind when you're going after wide receivers on the waiver wire. Sterling Shepard is back on my list because, I mean, right now we got to say he is defaulted as the wide receiver one in New York. We really don't know who the wide receiver one is. I mean, Kadarius Toney, we got, Shepard, Kenny Galladay's out the door. So now you're kind of looking at Daniel Jones going back to the well of chemistry that he does have and possess already, and that is in Sterling Shepard. So you got to look in his direction. Richie James is making a name for himself as well, but I'm actually more on the Sterling Shepard side. As long as Shepard can stay healthy, he's a good wide receiver, a good reliable guy that you can definitely get, and you probably get him pennies on the dollar. I want to say like 3% fab rate right now. I think very much so. 9% ownership rate. People still going to be sleeping because they don't know who the wide receiver one is. Kind of wide receiver one by mix in New York right now. But Shepard is a guy I think that definitely needs to be owned on your roster. Jacoby Myers 50%, so he's still there, but he's again making plays. And again, this New England Patriots offense, can we trust it? It's very difficult to trust at this point, but I get it, man. Myers is probably the top PPR guy you want. Nelson Aguilar had himself a game this past week, so, I mean, could that be a one-off? I'm not really running to the waiver to go and get me some Nelson Aguilar. I'd rather go get myself some Jacoby Myers at 50% ownership rate, and likely others are going to fade his services as well. But if you're looking for high PPR upside, especially in full PPR leagues, Myers is definitely a good one. Robbie Anderson, he graces the list for that big play opportunity, but again, it's going to be hit and and miss week in, week out, so you got to watch out for that. Corey Davis does find his way on my list, and it's interesting because Joe Flacco does like to throw the wide receivers in abundance and move the ball around, I should say, to his wide receivers more often than not. He's been doing a very good job, better than Zach Wilson had ever done for Corey Davis, and he's got 26 points on 8% ownership rate. He's fine in the end zone. The target share isn't abundant for him, but he's wide open out there, especially now with Garrett Wilson. So again, you miss out on Garrett Wilson. Now you can actually even go back and think, maybe if I desperately need a wide receiver, Corey Davis is there. We got Sammy Watkins rounding it out again. Okay, fine. He had himself a good day. Maybe this is a little bit of a chemistry build between Aaron Rodgers. You likely can wait another week on a Sammy Watkins, but I'm putting him on the list right now so everybody's aware that, he had a good game, so we gotta think and talk about it to say Aaron Rodgers is looking for the playmakers for this offense to continue to round out for this wide receiver room. So Sammy Watkins is back on the radar. Van Jefferson is one we got to look at right now. I'm putting him in a little early. Yes, he's coming off the knee. This might be 2 weeks too early for Van Jefferson, but once he gets healthy, he is going to be a waiver wire darling. So, okay, if you have the room, again, this is why, man. You put him on the watch list. If you have room, you take a chance and you put him on there. If they hit, this is going to be league winner type of stuff, right? So you got to hope Van Jefferson does recover from his knee injury because the Rams desperately require his services back in that slot to give that offense more weapons and more appeal to move coverages aside and single coverage their wide receivers all day long. Van Jefferson, keep your eye on him. Smash that little, triangle star on the waiver wire watch list. Put him on the watch list right now unless you have deep leagues and you have room on your bench for Van Jefferson. Quarterback time. Streaming quarterbacks, if you're in that type of business. I typically am not. But we got some good ones this week, man. Carson Wentz still 53% ownership rate, so he's likely in a lot of leagues for y'all. 63 points, and he just continues. Yes, his game was subpar this past week. Still found the end zone, I believe, 3 times. Did throw you the 1 interception. This offense did not look as good as they did in week 1. To be expected, the ups and downs with Carson Wentz, with the Washington Commanders, the Commies. And, Wentz is still moving this ball enough to be extremely fantasy viable and productive. And that's what we're looking out for our quarterbacks. 30 points per week, you can't hate that type of production whatsoever. Wentz is a guy, if you're a streamer, he's still there. You got to always look at his services regardless of who he's playing on the most part outside of the top 5 defenses, of course, because he will throw you those interceptions. Jared Goff finds his way back. What year is this that we're talking Carson Wentz and Jared Goff as pickup quarterbacks? This offense in Detroit, man. Detroit is legit, man. You got to talk about the head coach, Brian Campbell, or Campbell. I forget his first name. I probably butchered that. But Campbell is his last name, I know. And, he's got this team playing and getting them ready every single week. And this team is not going to be a pushover anymore in Detroit. They showed it, man. The run game is there. The pass game with Amon-Ra St. Brown is reminiscent of what Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff did in L.A. So you got to love the potential that Jared Goff can now bring you. This offensive line in Detroit is top 3, no kidding, in the NFL. Jared Goff, with time, ability to dissect the field, has weapons galore all over the field, and the run game's working. Sign me up for Jared Goff on good matchup play if you're streaming quarterbacks, because I think he is going to continue down this path. 15% basic ownership shares right now, and I would definitely go after his services, especially if you want to talk about which one you want between, Carson Wentz or Jared Goff. I'm probably going to go maybe Jared Goff because you won't have to spend all your fab money, and you're still kind of getting similar productivity from week to week as we move forward. But I understand, Carson Wentz probably does have the better upside than a Jared Goff at this point. Ryan Tannehill, he gets blown up by the Bills. He has a regrettable day, but he's got a good matchup this week if you're looking for streaming Tannehill, and he should bounce back, especially, after they're going to lick their wounds. Going to try to get back to the run game with King Henry, set up the play-action pass, and he's got to utilize his wide receivers that he does have. They're all new again, so that's a problem. Chemistry building is just not there for Tannehill at this point. He will grow, man. He will get better, but he is a good fantasy quarterback if you're looking for streaming options. Trevor Lawrence is a guy we need to talk about, okay? If you guys, I'm going to caveat that with saying I was a believer in Trevor Lawrence. Was I overly confident that he was going to do something in year 1 with Urban Meyer? No. I was out the door. I said I want to see progression before we can trust him in any kind of fantasy circle. This past game, we saw flashes in year one. I'll even put that point to it as well. You go back to the Thursday Night Football with versus Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. That was his flash game in his rookie season for Trevor Lawrence. We go to this game this past week against the Indianapolis Colts, where the Jaguars absolutely just dismantled them and shut them out at home. We saw massive progression from Trevor Lawrence. He looks extremely comfortable in the pocket now. He's reading and dissecting the field. He's going through 3 and 4 reads on the field, and this is what you want to see from a young quarterback. This is like we saw with Josh Allen. I was telling everybody, patience is key with a guy like Josh Allen. Yes, the thing is with Trevor Lawrence being the first overall pick, a lot of expectation was there for him to produce instantly out the gates. Usually doesn't happen for young quarterbacks. They need time to groom and develop. And I'm going to give Trevor Lawrence a pass going with Urban Meyer because I think that was just an absolute poo fire in Jacksonville. Now they got him playing, and I'm actually excited for the services. 53% ownership rate, and he looked good. They got pass-catching options in Christian Kirk. I slept on Christian Kirk. Like I said, I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong on Christian Kirk. I did not think that he was going to be utilized like this in this offense, and the chemistry is starting to build. The trust is starting to get there, and I'm getting a little bit more warm on wanting Trevor Lawrence, especially if I'm streaming my quarterbacks in matchup play. Jimmy Garoppolo takes over for Trey Lance. This is positives for Trey Lance owners because you can likely replace him with Jimmy Garoppolo and probably get similar productivity. Will he give you the top-end numbers we believe Trey Lance was going to give? No, but he is a game manager, has the ability to give you anywhere from 16 to 20 points per week, which is a very safe floor for your fantasy football team. If you're looking for higher upside, obviously you're going in another direction, but if you want that safety net, Jimmy Garoppolo can be that guy to give you the point productivity. Similarly to a Baker Mayfield, he does have this offense moving in the right direction. They're not quite there yet, but he is, again, that 15 to 20-point guy per week that you can likely trust when you need it. Daniel Jones, he's Daniel Pennies, and we'll just move on from quarterbacks at that point because I think I gave you enough streaming options to get you through week 3, man. Tight ends to round it out and finish it off. Why didn't nobody listen, man? Why is Gerald Everett still 43%? I don't get it. No Keenan Allen. He looked good in week 1. Justin Herbert is looking in his direction a lot. He looks fast and nimble. I don't remember him this fast and nimble back in his days with the Rams and with the Seahawks. So, I mean, either he lost weight, did some conditioning. He looks a lot better on that field, like he's ready to take over. Okay, yes, he was gassed on that interception that went to the house by the Chiefs, and we saw that replay. Gerald Everett is definitely a player you need to have at the tight end spot. He's doing better than Kyle Pitts, for God's sakes. Kyle Pitts, you're killing me, bro. Gerald Everett, definitely, man. 43.8% ownership rate, 23 points for a tight end position that if you fall in the end zone 6 times, you're basically a top 5 guy. Gerald Everett is one of these guys you got to get on your list. Evan Ingram, he is, like LL Cool J said, man, don't call it a comeback. He's been here for years, and I mean, the dropping problem for Evan Ingram is always the problem. I get it, okay? I do like this offense and what they're trying to do in Jacksonville. Like I said, as long as I'm promoting myself a little Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to start promoting myself a little Evan Ingram. The dropping problems will always be there, but he saw a much improved target share this past week. They have a lot of weapons in Jacksonville that I do like, man, using the running game. Now, James Robinson, back to the good graces. I do want to see Travis Etienne use a little bit more, but now you got Christian Kirk, you got Evan Ingram. There's mismatches all over this field. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, you got pieces that you can move this ball around. Evan Ingram is one of these guys that I think at this point, yes, it's still a risk, but the tight end position is completely a risk every single week, especially if you're a streamer at tight ends like I am. Evan Ingram is definitely one that I'm okay owning right now, especially in good matchups versus tight ends, because I think Trevor Lawrence is starting to build that comfortability, I just made up a word, with his guy Evan Ingram, but I think he is a guy we need to understand needs to be on our roster, especially if we got crappy tight ends like I do in some leagues, and I like to stream and swap them out every single week. Logan Thomas was another guy I told y'all last week you got to keep your eye on because he's going to pop. He looked good from that ACL, and look what he did. He scores himself his first touchdown of the season, looks very good, 15% ownership rate, almost 20 points scored for you. Again, better than Kyle Pitts. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But Logan Thomas does look good right now. I do like this Washington Commies offense. It is moving the ball with good levels of consistency. He will do that for you. Will Disley finds himself on this list only because I don't know how this Seattle Seahawks offense is going to continue to morph, but Disley was involved, so once you're involved, you catch my eye. This is fantasy football productivity that we need to know. Is he going to be a safe option? Probably not, but if you're stuck and you're looking at a good matchup, again, Disley is that guy you got to look to, and I mean, it's high risk, high reward, no kidding, because Noah Fant is there. He is the tight end one, but maybe that brings a little bit more to Disley's side. We will see as the season does go on. Mike Gesicki does find his way to good graces this past week. A wonderful catch in the end zone, a horrible gritty to finish it off. I don't know what you're doing. Go to dance class, bro, because you just didn't have the gritty whatsoever. But Mike Gesicki, this is going to be hit and miss. So, I mean, I can't necessarily endorse picking him up and starting him on a weekly basis because this offense now does run through Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Like we said, it could coexist with both those individuals, cooking the defense. So Gesicki's one guy, it's probably like 1 out of 4 he's going to hit and then miss. So you got to keep your eye on that one as well. Taysom Hill dump fired us this past week, but I still got trust in the man because they're going to utilize him from the quarterback position. You got to say 3-4 times a game. And that just gives you great point production for the tight end spot. So, I mean, still 42% ownership rate. That will likely go down. I saw a lot of people dropping his services right after that contest because he did bust for us this past week in week 2. But there could be on the rise, man. You got to reinstall the Taysom Hill running back appeal. So we'll see. I mean, that type of point productivity, you can't fake. Hurst, Conklin, and Tanyan, they do round out the streamer options at the tight end spot. But Hurst is probably one of these guys I'm looking to as well because he's being looked at from Joey B, even though Joey B has been looking pretty, shady himself, not looking very good in the quarterback spot. But again, comfortability, making up that word, it's going to come back to the Cincinnati Bengals, and Hurst is going to be a definite option you got to trust. So there you have it. Like I said, some players to add for week 3. Go shopping on that waiver wire because you always got to improve your team. There are players that we can covet at this point. Garrett Wilson is your guy, man. Go spend that fab money on this man because he is a true alpha in the making, and he's going to produce for you basically week to week, you got to think, as we sit today. But nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts. Who you guys like this week? Who you guys taking this week? Whatever you want to talk about, throw them in the comments. I'll answer you back. But nevertheless, we'll see you next time. I am out.